Meanwhile, an opinion poll is being conducted by Press TV's website asking if the West should respect Iran's nuclear enrichment rights under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. The poll was open from November the 5th to the 12th. Almost 90% voted yes and 11% no. The US had the most participants with more than 1,500, Britain with just over 700, Canada under 500, Germany under 200 and Australia with over 120. Iran has accused the West of going back on their word with regards to a possible agreement of Iran's nuclear energy program. Let's talk to Hamid Golpira, journalist and political commentator from Tehran. Welcome, sir. Mr. Golpira, the international community, that is the citizens of the world, support Iran's nuclear program under the NPT. So why do you think the US and its allies are trying to limit the program as much as possible while it's being monitored by the IAEA?
Well, as far as the Iranian nuclear program is going, a lot of things are happening at once in this program. You have the opposition of Israel, the opposition of the Israeli lobby in the United States. You have certain forces in the U.S. Congress, certain people, congressmen and congresswomen in the U.S. Congress who are opposed to Iran. Then you have some of them are beholden and depend on Israeli lobby money and corporations connected to the Israeli lobby to get elected. And so there's a lot of issues happening. Also, there's some moves to weaken the Iranian economy because having nuclear energy would be a boost to the Iranian economy. So that's also happening from some forces.
There were many criticism on France in the latest round of talks in Geneva. Many blamed France for not reaching a deal on Iran's nuclear issue. How much do you think France is an obstacle?
I mean, France is being blamed as the spoiler, the one that prevented things from happening. But maybe there's, they're not saying everything that happened. They might have been acting in line with some others too. So I don't know if it would be proper and correct to completely say it was only France and everybody else was ready to find a final deal, because it seems there was a couple of sticking points left, a couple of points not resolved. So I don't think it was completely just the French, although they seem to be getting the blame for it. They were the ones that seem to be the ones that are saying that, okay, everyone is saying that they came out saying we're against this deal, so or against what was shaping up to be a deal.
And how confident can Iran be for a deal to be reached on the Iranian nuclear issue?
Well, like I said, it depends on like how things are. It seems that some forces in the world, especially the global South, such as the non-aligned movement countries, the global South countries, are not opposed to Iran. Certain others are not opposed to Iran. Even in Western countries, there's some people in general are not opposed to Iran. Maybe all of them are not officials or something. Some might be the general populace of those countries, but all of them are not so opposed to Iran or Iran having uranium enrichment and a nuclear energy program. But some are opposed. I think Iran should also try to gather its allies together, make efforts, to solidify its support in the international community. If much of the world supports Iran, after a while the opposition of a few countries is going to be not possible anyway. The fact that a few countries are against Iran, it's not going to be able to stand up. That they're not going to be able to stand up to the rest of the world. So this is a possibility in the future.
Yes, and finally, very briefly, there's a lot of hype over Iran's nuclear issue. Why isn't there any discussion on Israel's nuclear weapons program?
Well, there's the rub. Yeah, that's the point. Israel has nuclear weapons, and other countries have nuclear weapons too. I mean, even the NPT that grants 5 countries the right, these big 5 countries with a veto in the U.S. grants them the right to temporarily have nuclear weapons. Even the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty says eventually they must dismantle their weapons. Now, Israel and some other countries have nuclear weapons, and they are not members. They're not signatories to the NPT, so they're not technically outside of. They're not technically violating the treaty, because they have not signed it, but at the same rate, it is becoming a certain kind of international law that they're not supposed they're not supposed to be having a nuclear program like this. And on top of that is the fact that they have this like nuclear ambiguity. They have this official policy: we don't say if we have nuclear weapons, and we don't say if we don't. I mean, they actually are, most people are pretty certain that they do have nuclear weapons. So the fact that the world is not coming down on Israel, which has nuclear weapons, or pushing the five countries that have a kind of a temporary pass in the NPT to more speedily dismantle their nuclear weapons.